Today, you're going to learn how to use GSAP to create this awesome UI animation sequence. Before we begin, this video's sponsor is bookmark.com, which is a free website builder that uses artificial intelligence to create websites right in front of your eyes. The entire process is less than 2 minutes, and it only consists of answering 7 simple questions. And if you need to sell stuff, you can create an online store very easily. It's really cool. I recommend it, so check out bookmark.com today. Hey everyone, what's up? Gary Simon of Coursetro. So today I am really excited because I've been wanting to cover GreenSock for quite a while, and I just haven't got around to it, and I never even really touched it until quite recently, and I'm excited because this is a very powerful animation platform, and it's called GSAP, or GreenSock, which is the company, animation platform, and it's a collection of different products, and a lot are free. There's some plugins that are paid that you have to become a member of their service, but the one I'm covering today is completely free. You can get it from a CDN, and I'm going to show you how to use that, and that is called TweenMax. All right, so going forward, I'm planning on covering a lot of different GreenSock products and showing you how to do a lot of really cool stuff. So for today, I'm going to show you how to do this simple animation using what's called TweenMax. All right, so I'm not going to cover exactly how I went into designing all of this, but it's very, very simple, as you can see. So for today's question, outside of GSAP, do you use any other animation libraries? All right, let me know in the comments. I'll let you know my thoughts, and make sure to subscribe if you haven't yet, and let's get started. All right, so the very first step here, and it should always be your first step, is when you're starting a new UI project, get in something like Adobe Experience Design or even Photoshop. I mean, nobody uses it anymore, or Sketch, anything, or Illustrator, to get an idea of, or a very solid idea of what you want your UI to be. So I'm not going to sit here doing this from scratch. This is what I created. Really, it's just one SVG element that we'll be exporting. This is from iconfinder.com, and then that's really it. So what we'll do now is I'm going to just hop into the code editor, and this is a blank folder here in Visual Studio Code, which is a free code editor from Microsoft. All right, so the first thing, as always, I'm going to start in index.html. We're not doing any frameworks or libraries like JavaScript, or like React or Angular or Vue. That will come down the line. I just want to keep this pure vanilla JavaScript for now. So I'm going to exclamation point, enter to get some boilerplate. I'm going to put in a link to our CSS. So CSS main.css, we're going to put that there. We'll just call this GSAP, and then save, and then make a CSS folder, and then put in a main.scss for Sass. And momentarily, you have to have the Sass plugin for Visual Studio Code. You can do a Google search for that and install it real quickly. Close that out, and now we can go ahead and get started. All right, with writing. So the first thing is to write the HTML, and we don't have much HTML. Fortunately, it's very simple, so this will be very quick. So we'll put in an H1 element, and engineering, if I could type, for tomorrow. All right, some cheesy headline, and then we're going to put a button with an ID of, we'll say CTA for call to action. Watch here. All right. After that, we'll go ahead and put in a div with a class of panel. This will be for this section right here. And inside of it, we're going to put a couple elements. So we'll have an image with a source of images /light.svg. We'll have to export that in a second. And then also a paragraph. I'm going to copy and paste just a sentence I prepared. Some great line about engineering and how we did something everyone will love. Okay, great. Now for the next part, for this box, this right here, originally I did have that set up so that it was just, we don't need an extra HTML element for that. I was just going to use the after selector for the paragraph right here and then just style it in the CSS. But I found that when it came to animating it, I wanted to have a separate HTML element for that. So we'll just put in a div here, and we'll say class equals box. All right, and that's it. All right, so before we start integrating GSAP here, what we'll do is head over to the main SAS file, and I'm just going to copy and paste some of the rule sets. I'm going to make this available, by the way, on GitHub. And so the first one, very simple, just a body with a font family of my favorite font. This is installed on my machine, so I'm not importing it from Google Fonts. All right, and then what else? Oh, by the way, I'm not making this responsive just because it's extra work that we don't need. It's not relevant to the purpose of this tutorial. So I'm just adding 9EM on the body itself. So this is meant to be seen on like a desktop resolution around 1920 or 2K res. Also, we have our H1 element. All right, so this is our red text, our headline. Also, after that, we have our button. And this is the black button, which is in reference to this, or the black outline button, rather. All right, nothing special happening here. By the way, if you want to follow along, of course, you can just pause, and then you can get these. Or again, you can check out the GitHub page. Next, we're going to have our panel. All right, so this part's pretty important. So for now, what I'm going to do is get rid of some of this stuff right here. All right, so I'm going to get rid of those two elements. We'll bring those back momentarily. And all that's happened here is we have a position absolute. We're taking the width to 55% of the browser. You know, we're situating it here from bottom. So we want it to grow from the bottom and up. So that's why I have bottom 0. Then background and padding, and that's about it. Next, inside of here, nested, is going to be our image, which is that SVG graphic that I have to import that still. Inside of here, what I'll do is put in this right here. All right, so we're just giving it a width of 120 pixels. Going to float it left because we have the text to the right of it, and then we're pushing the text over the margin. And then, by the way, let me close this off there. After that, we have our paragraph element. I'm going to make that, remove that opacity property. And then finally our box. All right, so again, I'm going to get rid of this and this property right here because I want to see everything by default. So nothing special happening here. We just have a border, a width, a height, a position of absolute, and we're just positioning it based on what I did in the Adobe XD mockup. All right, so now I'm going to hit Control B. Right click and open with live server. This is an extension that you'd have to install for Visual Studio Code. And there you go. It's not working. Ha! What the hell? All right, so I need to get this. Oh, I know why. Well, let me go back. There was something that we're actually going to remove this, but I'm going to put height 100 VH. But just for now, just so we could see it. There we go. So now let me go ahead and get this situated real quick, the image. All right, and I just went ahead and created that images folder, and that light graphic is right here, the SVG. All right, so going back also, the Z index here would typically it will actually work once we integrate the animation, but because the animation isn't baked in and hasn't been shown, I'm just going to remove that now. We should see it almost as it should be, even though it is kind of overlapping, but we're going to add that back momentarily. But this is basically what we want the final state after the animation has taken place. So make sure you have all that in order before you start to do your animation when you're trying to do something like this. All right, so I'm going to add that back. All right, so now let's go ahead and hit Control B, and we're going to import our TweenMax. All right, so there's a CDN where you can find all of this stuff. So if you just go to Google and type in, let's see here, green socks TweenMax CDN, click on here, and you're gonna find all the plugins that you have available to use. So we have Tween Light, tween line, just a bunch of them. So the one that we want to use is right here, tweenmax.min.js. So over here, I'm going to put copy script tag, and I can close out of there for now, and then paste that right here. All right. So let me make this a little bit smaller. There we go. And then you could either link up another script if you want your JavaScript in a separate file. Usually you would, but just to make things simple, I'm just going to have script tags right here and do our inline JavaScript. Okay, so now we have to ask ourselves, what is the first thing that we want to happen? Well, first of all, when the site loads up, we don't want to show any of this. All right, it's just going to be this element and this element. So we have to remedy this stuff, and we have to hide it and make adjustments based on how we want it to animate. So for the first thing that I want to do is, remember we had our panel, we had a couple properties down here that we wanted to adjust. So what I decided to do was, instead of just taking the opacity to 0 or something, I decided to do a transform. And we're going to scale on the y-axis, which is vertical, to 0. That's just going to squish it down. And also transform origin bottom. And the reason we're adding that is because I want it to come from the bottom. And if we didn't add this property and we scale it, it's going to scale from the middle of the page up and down. So I just want to straight it from the bottom. All right. Now, once we make that change, by the way, everything's going to disappear, but still you need to hide the other elements through opacity, because when this scales up, and that panel scales up, because those are child elements inside of it, they'll look real strange, and they'll start out very squished and look stupid. So what we'll do is come back to our main. A few things that we needed to change here is, first is this is going to be opacity 0, and I'll just copy that real quick, by the way, and we have to apply this to our paragraph and our box element. All right, so now that those are properly hidden, and I think for now I'm not going to add any more properties, but we will momentarily, based on really experimenting with the animations. All right, so finally now we're here at the actual purpose of this tutorial, but the setup's important. I don't like skipping it. So now what we'll do is we'll go ahead and we have to create a click event based on this button. All right, so everything happens when a person clicks on this button with the ID of CTA for call to action. So we're going to put document, and then we're going to put in a get element by ID. The element happens to be CTA, the ID, and then also add event listener, and we're going to say it's a click event with a function, and we open it up. All right, so after it's clicked, whatever happens here gets executed. All right, so the way we start is TweenMax, and we use the to method. All right, so inside of this method, it first accepts the target element from which you want to animate or apply a tween animation to. In our case, it happens to be the panel element. So we want that panel. It's the first thing we want to start animating, and it's a class of panel. So we put in panel here, and if there were multiple elements with the panel class here in our HTML, those would animate as well. All right. Next, we comma separate it, and the next argument is the animation duration. All right, so for this, I'll just put 1. And then next, it's going to accept the different parameters from which you want to animate, their properties. And these are based on CSS property names. And when it comes to some of the property names, they're structured differently in camel case. So the first thing we're going to do is, remember, we had it scale y 0 right here. If we can find it on our panel right here. So what we do is we simply put in scale y. So we don't have to put transform and then a colon and then the property name. We just put scale y, and then we'll put the value of 1, which would be 100%. All right. So then also we're going to set the height to 100 viewport heights. Now remember, I already specified that over here. but we want to remove this and do it right here. All right, we have to wrap this in quotes here. And then, by the way, also because I forgot to wrap these in an object, so just put that, there we go. And then also, well, for now we're gonna leave that right there and just give it a shot as is. And that's all it's gonna take. So now, look at that. Awesome stuff. And of course, the other stuff isn't shown because we have opacity 0. All right, so it is a duration of 1 second. It does have some default, I think it's like a default ease in, or that you'll see. And you'll notice if it does slow down at the end. If you want to change the animation duration to something longer, you'll see how that slows down at the end. If you want to specify custom easing, then we can put a comma here with the ease property and then the ease that you want. So what do you know which values you can use? We'll go to the docs, greenstock.com/docs, and we'll put in, we'll go to easing. And this has a great little ease visualizer here. And these are all the different types of easing that they offer, and along with, based on what you chose, the ease property. All right, so go through all of these. They're really cool, very powerful. Like you can have bounce animations very easily, just stepping based animations. We're gonna try, circ ease out for the circle. And so all I have to do is just take this right there, copy that, and then paste and save. I'm gonna make this 1.5 seconds. All right. All right, so it is just slightly different from what it was before by default, the default ease in, but it's actually a little bit more dramatic. It takes a little bit more time for it to actually reach the top of the browser. All right, I like that. All right, so next we have the light bulb that I want to put in, that SVG graphic. So then what we'll do is put a TweenMax.2, and the light is an ID of light. And we're going to say 1 second. And this time we're going to bring the opacity to 1 because we have it set to 0. We're going to say Y. And this is just for the vertical location. We're going to say 0. And then we're also going to put a delay because we don't want it to start in conjunction or at the same time. Actually, we're going to leave the we'll go ahead and leave the delay off just so you can see why we would want a delay in the first place. Now I put Y0 here because I wanted it to fall in and down. And so if we go back to our SVG, here's our graphic right here. What I want to do is put in a transform. Translate Y, -200 pixels. All right, so this Y value is in reference to this translate Y right here. So we're setting it to 0 in our code down here. So let's save this and watch it. And where to go. All right, well, let's go ahead and take a look and see what happened. We have our image. Oh, ID equals light. Might need that. And try again. All right, so looks like a couple things didn't work out as I expected. So first, let's figure it out. I'm going to leave this in the video. Now, I did expect it to look real silly like that when it was being squished because remember, I wanted to show why we would add a delay. So let's add a delay right here. And the delay will be 1 second, or the duration, roughly the duration of this, of 1.5 seconds. There we go. Much better. All right, great. And of course, you can experiment by adding different easing options to this. Like if you wanted it to bounce down or something like that. Again, just go to these easings down here, bounce, and We could do elastic. I like back. Let's try that. Copy that. Put this here. Specify ease property first. So let's try this now. There we go. It's very subtle, as you can see. Nice. All right, now let's work with the text. So we have our paragraph. We can also just say P for all of the paragraph elements. I only have one, so I can get away with that. We'll say this is 1 second as well. We're going to say this time opacity as well is going to be 1 because we have set to 0. We'll say Y20. All right, so it's just going to push itself down by 20 pixels, a very small adjustment. And then a delay, we'll say 1.4 this time. So it's going to come in a bit after the light graphic. There we go. And then finally, we also have our box. We'll say it's a box class on our div. We have, we'll make this one be 3 seconds. We'll say opacity is 1. Scale is 1. We're going to say delay. Actually, we're not even going to have a delay. I think we're going to start right away. And then we're going to use our elastic. It's very cool easing here. So elastic. We'll just leave it at those settings. Copy this. Paste that in. Save it. And let's give this a shot. Okay, that's not exactly how I imagined it to be. Okay, so I realized there was a property that I needed to set. Transform. Scale is 0. So I wanted to start from absolute 0 scale, and then we'll really see the elastic effect that I was anticipating seeing that I didn't see. There we go. Look at that. Let's try that again. It kind of just pops out of nowhere while the other animation is occurring. And it's just a very nice effect that I like a lot. Notice also our z-index 0 worked correctly. It's not being hidden. And that has to do with the fact that it came in after this panel right here came in. So we'll check that out one more time. And there we go. All right, so as we could see, based on this code, you can do a lot of really awesome things. But notice this is more of a sort of on an intermediate based a level of complexity when it comes to animation sequences. So instead of just using straight up TweenMax, you can also use their timeline and to really add an extra level of flexibility and also ease of use without having to deal with all of these delays. And that's going to be something that I cover in either the next tutorial or in a day or two coming down the road. All right, hopefully you found that useful. Again, I'm really excited to start covering more of this, so expect more tutorials here in the next week and going forward, because we've only just scratched the surface of what this company and their products are capable of allowing you to do as a UI designer. So again, make sure to answer today's question, which is outside of GSAP, do you use any other animation libraries? All right, make sure to subscribe, and I'll see you soon. Goodbye.